Hello, I'm Mika Panda Ghost Story. Please like and click the follow bell button so you don't miss my videos. Thank you. It happened on the night that I was the designated driver among my group of friends after a part of me friends were Michael, Eddie and Daniela. We live in the country, so anytime we wanted to go to the bars or parties he'd have to travel long distances. That's why it's such a big deal for one of us to be sober enough to drive. We were driving down the 513, which is an unlit highway littered with the occasional house or two, but mostly forest. The road leads to town, where most of the bars of this story takes place. On the way back from town, Daniela started to cry that she had to piss really bad. I told her she'd have to wait a while longer, but not gonna lie, I started to get the urge as well. That mixed with the fact that Daniela was now screaming in her drunken fit, I figured why not pull over to the side of the road and just piss somewhere in the woods. Daniela got out first and disappeared into the crops on one side. I went to the opposite side of their road and slightly into the woods just because I'm the type of person who can't have people watching me piss. I finished first and got back in the car. Eddie and Michael were singing to the roaring rad music playing on the radio while I pretty much just sat there in silence, growing impatient. My two drunk friends didn't seem to find anything strange about the fact that Danielle had now been gone for 5 minutes, so I got back out to call her name. Cole has a much stronger voice than I, so when he screamed for her, it would be impossible for her not to hear, but still she didn't call back. I didn't want to go in those crops, but I kinda felt like I had to since she's my friend and I was the most aware at that moment. I forced Michael to come with, since I was afraid to go in alone. Eddie stayed in the car. He was just too far gone at this point. With the flashlight from my glove box, Michael and he pushed our way through the thick overgrown crops, walking in the only direction we could think to go straight away from the car. Michael was calling Danielle's name while laughing his ass off. I can understand why he was finding it funny in his condition, but I just wanted to make sure she was all right and get home. Over the sounds of her own footsteps brushing crops aside and Michael's laughter, I heard something else in the near vicinity. I put my arm out to Michael's chest to halt him. Now all that could be heard was the night breeze blowing through the crops. What is it like? I whispered, to which I responded that Michael called out Daniela, his name again. I joined in, figuring it was just her trying to sneak up on us and scare us. And again the footsteps stopped, so we walked a little deeper into the crops. That's when we came to a narrow clearing stretch. I don't know much about crops and farming or anything, but it seemed to be some little stretch for people to walk through. It was probably the width of 2 people, just enough to walk through. I looked to my left as far down as light would let me see, and then to right he could hear 3 footsteps, and then a couple crops pushed outward into the opening as somebody stepped into view. At first my light was only revealing their legs, so by default onto the circumstances I assumed it was Michael. However, the light revealed it to be not Michael, but instead some random man who I'd never seen before. His facial features weren't clear enough to give a good description, but he didn't look friendly. I ran for it back in the only direction I remembered coming from. I guess I ran so fast that it only took me about 10 seconds to make it back to the car. ID, he was passed out in the car at this point, so I didn't bother trying to get help from him. Was honking their horns again, Michael's and hopefully Daniela's attention. The sight of that man just disturbed me. I didn't know if he owned this land or not. I continued to land the horn until finally Michael came out of the crops dragging Daniela, who seemed to be out cold. I got out to help him lift her back inside of the car and plop her on the seat. Michael pointed out the gash on her forehead as if she had been struck with a heavy sharp object. Michael seemed to be sobering up pretty quickly due to the situation, he advised. I drive to the nearest hospital, which was 10 minutes away. The drive there was not fun. It was full of panic and yelling. We brought Danielle in to have her wound treated as soon as possible. It was only then that Michael explains to the nurses, not me, that he saw some guy dragging her collapsed unconscious body before fleeing deeper into the crops. After noticing him, he never mentioned that in the car, but it made perfect sense now. That man in the crops with us that night did this. Daniela was awake, but she got all stitched up, and she had no recollection of the entire night from the moment we stepped into the party to the moment she got struck in the head.